Well, hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee as we wait for meteorologist Joe Rayo, who has not chimed in yet on tonight's Joe and Joe weather show. He should be on shortly, unless he's having some sort of technical difficulties. We actually had, if you were from New York City, north and east today, had a really nice day. I have to say, it was really a good looking day as far as the weather is concerned. And we are going to see things deteriorate. We've got two weather systems that are on the way. The first one is going to, oh, that could be him right now. Hang on. Mr. Rayo. We
Yes,
are,
sir.
just so you know, that we are on live as we speak.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I
Well, that's nice
started,
to know.
just want to give you the, full disclosure thing.
We were we were having tacos.
Oh, I made like a little bit of a burrito kind of thing. I made some steaks tonight.
So we were a little late. You know how it is sometimes when you try to roll the taco up with all that meat and other stuff in there.
Yeah, I got you. It can be difficult.
Yes.
So, welcome to tonight's show, everybody. As I said, and we are going to end at 7:30 tonight because there's a Met game on that Joe wants to see. You can explain really quick what that Met game is.
SNY, the Met Network, is running all of this week the 1969 World Series, which lasted 5 games. So that's perfect. We have 5 days during this week, work week. We had game one last night. Tonight will be game two. And then Wednesday will be game three, Thursday, game four. And then if you are really in a celebratory mood, when the Mets win the World Series, it'll be game five on Friday. Tonight's game is in Baltimore. And also, for reasons I have no clue why, it is a black and white kinescope, which kind of added like a weird effect watching the game last night and seeing it in black and white. But tonight's game, last night the Mets lost. Tonight the Mets, as many of you Met fans know, will win, and Jerry Kuzman will no hit the Orioles for 7 innings, and in the ninth inning, Al Weiss, probably the least likely person to get a base hit in a key period or key moment, did get a base hit, put the Mets ahead, and the Mets won the game.
By the
So
way, it is highly possible that the original prints of the World Series are either A, sitting in somebody's attic, B, wound up being damaged or destroyed because someone was either smoking over it and set them afire, or maybe spilled their lunch all over them. But I would bet on the possibility that somebody at NBC has a copy of that film, because in those days that's what it was. It was on film.
right.
Somebody's got a copy of that film in their house, and when that person passes to the great beyond, we'll probably discuss. They'll probably somehow reappear and get discovered.
You're close in one respect. Bing Crosby, who owned a piece of the Pittsburgh Pirates, was in Europe when the Pirates played the Yankees in 1960 in the World Series, and he had somebody actually film the seventh and final deciding game of
Yes,
the World Series,
that's a famous story. Yes.
and um, he must have stored this film somewhere down in his basement. It was he viewed it, I guess, once. Then it was long forgotten, and years. I'm talking about he died in 1977. Bing Crosby did. It was not. It was like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago that somebody cleaning out his home in the basement found the film, and
Yeah,
they corrected
that's
it.
what happens.
Yeah, it's
That's what
amazing.
happens.
And they had a grand on the MLB network. They showed the whole game. They actually invited living members of both teams together, and they had Bob Costas was the host, and they made a big deal out of it. You probably can find that on YouTube. Um, it's interesting.
Yeah. All right, so let's roll along with tonight's weather because we don't have a whole lot happening at the moment. There are some severe weather issues going on in the Carolinas, which we're going to get to in a second, and I think there might even be one working tornado warning up in one of the counties in South Carolina. If I'm seeing that little dot of bright red, That's at least as of 7:05 Eastern time. Otherwise, we're not really seeing too much in the way of other advisories. They have coastal flood statements put up for parts of New Jersey down to Delaware. Coastal flood advisory that also extends up to southern. Could we have a full moon this week?
Yes, we do. We have, in fact, a supposedly a super moon this
Okay,
week.
so that's probably why, with the low going where it's going and the northeast to east wind tomorrow, coastal flood advisories up for some of the coastal areas from southern New England, Long Island, much of the New Jersey shore down into Delaware. So that makes sense. I'm guessing that they're probably calling for only minor coastal flooding out of this. Impacts, blah blah blah. blah. Let's see, minor or none, depending on the
Right.
one tide that's coming up is the 9 p.m. high tide, minor flooding. So it's the high tides coming up for the what is that, the 6th or the 7th? It's tomorrow evening that they're putting it up for. Okay, so we got that settled. So again, as we said, we've got these coastal flooding issues. Probably more because of the full moon than the actual storm itself, because the low in and of itself is not going to be, anything to write home about. I think we're going to probably get some rain out of it, but it's not going to be, uh, a nonstop heavy rain. I really don't think we're going to get too much in terms of total rainfall. And when you take a look at what's going on around the country, Joe, it's just kind of pockets of things happening. But we are going to see a second storm system at the end of this week going into Saturday morning that's going to usher in a very cold Mother's Day, and I think we could see some lake effect snows in parts of upstate New York down to northern Pennsylvania, and maybe even extending down into the mountains of West Virginia on Saturday, and also up into northern New England. I
You
don't
know,
think there's going to be much of anything on the coast, by the way, which is what the GFS showed.
well, Joe, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a situation where it's going to we're going to have to see that cold air, which is really going to be rather deeply entrenched in the middle and upper layers of the atmosphere. I mean, I saw on the European that in the immediate New York City area, the thickness on Saturday morning is going to be around 520. 520
That's insane.
on the 9th of May. And although the lower levels will certainly be warm enough so that whatever precip falls will be chiefly rain, don't, blow away the
Oh,
possibility that
I
that a few snowflakes may
Oh,
make it
not at all. I
down.
think there may very well be a few wet snowflakes
Right.
in the mix. I wouldn't be at all surprised. And maybe inland of the coast, in some elevated areas, you certainly should see some wet snowflakes in the mix. But
Yeah.
the uh, the actual surface map of the GFS earlier today was something that was to behold, and it just reinforces the notion of this particular. This is the kind of weather pattern that you want to, if you're a winter weather lover, you want to see in the dead of winter and not in the middle of May. Meanwhile, we do have this lead low coming out. The clouds today, Joe, made it to about New York City. Briefly moved over Long Island. A little batch kind of clipped me early to mid afternoon, and then it broke out wide open into mostly sunny skies again,
Right.
going into this evening. But now we're seeing some of the heavier clouds that have been down over Pennsylvania and the rest of New Jersey and point south today. Some of that cloud cover starting to lift up to the north as this low comes out of the plains and starts to make its way across the Ohio Valley, and then eventually making its way, actually the upper features back there, the surface lows already moving into the Carolinas.
And it was a surprise. I said today we'd see sun veiled by high clouds. We did indeed see that for the first half of the day. What was surprising to me, at least, was all of that stuff cleared away during the afternoon, and it turned out to be every bit of a beautiful day. Albeit it was still, on average, about 5, 6, 7 degrees cooler than it should be, but still turned out to be a lovely, lovely afternoon. And now tomorrow we're going to have to go through some, if you pardon the unprofessional term, drecky weather with a lot of clouds, temperatures struggling to be much above 50 or 52, and again, just some spotty light precipitation, light rain tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. Not at all a very nice day out there tomorrow.
No, no problem with the vocabulary. Here's our thunderstorm activity tonight, and when you look in North Georgia, northern northwestern South Carolina into western North Carolina, we're seeing some showers and thunderstorms there, and a few heavier cells. And of course, this is triggering some action from the Storm Prediction Center, and we'll get to that in a second. There's a little bit of precip aloft, a little one of these narrow bands, Joe, running across southern Pennsylvania into central New Jersey. I'm sitting here in clear, not quite clear skies now, but an hour ago it was still clear. And, in terms of miles, those showers that you see moving off the New Jersey shore in that band are only about 90 or so miles south of me. But you know what? I look at this whole system and I'm just not overly impressed with it. I mean, in terms of if we were setting up for a total all day soaking washout rain tomorrow, you would think the radar would be loaded at this point to our south and west, and it really isn't. You've got this east west band of rain from northern Ohio back through Illinois and into Iowa. That's part of the upper low coming down. And, that really is about it. So I'm not I mean, it's not going to be a nice day tomorrow, no doubt. It's going to be cloudy. It's going to be raw. There'll probably be some light rain and drizzle, maybe even a little period of steadier rain. I just don't think this is going to be any kind of big flooding washout.
No, no. I think that at most we'll see maybe about a tenth of an inch, maybe less than 2/10 of an inch, and it will be spread out during the afternoon tomorrow evening, and it will not be continuous. I think it'll be spotty in nature, maybe a little steadier south of the city, but I don't really see all that much in terms of precipitation coming our way for later tomorrow. Right? It's just going to be kind of a dreary. In a word, tomorrow, weather-wise, it's going to be indifferent. That's the best word I could use
All
for
right.
tomorrow.
Indifferent works for me. The rest of the nation fairly quiet. The 21Z map, is it there yet? Yes, it is. So you actually have a warm sector that's set up in Georgia and South Carolina, near where we have that severe weather tonight. We're seeing temperatures into the 80s with dew points up, excuse me, in the mid to upper 60s as we're getting some of that warm tropical humid air moving northward. The warm front is running across South Carolina and then kind of edges along the North Carolina coast. You can see the low, one low in West Virginia, a weak low in eastern Tennessee, and then a low on the warm front near Wilmington, North Carolina. So eventually all of this is going to consolidate into one offshore low. You don't really have a big high you have higher pressures to the north, yes, to an extent, but there's nothing to write home here about. It's not like you have a 1040-ish high. You actually have lower pressures as you go out to the northeast with a low sitting between Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. So there's a high sitting over Lake Superior. But again, this is not what I would call nor'easter material. So we'll just take it from there.
No, but what we're looking at for Thursday night into Friday, now that's a whole different ball of
You
wax.
mean Friday night into Saturday?
Well, the initial wave of low pressure has to get itself together, I guess Thursday night or early Friday, somewhere over the nation's
Oh,
midsection,
okay, I got
and
you.
and then will ripple north and eastward up in our direction along a cold front. And it looks like, Joe, that as we get into Friday night and as that storm passes us by, I'm not sure yet whether or not it's going to go directly over us or just stay north or maybe be just to our south. But as it moves on by, those winds coming in behind it will begin, and the storm itself will begin to intensify and begin to drag in that colder air, first from aloft and then down near the surface. And as I said, initially, let's say as we move into Friday night, whatever is falling, it'll be just plain rain. But as we move into after midnight Friday night and on into Saturday, and as it gets progressively colder, let's say 5, 10, 15, 20,000 feet above our heads, and it starts to snow, and that precipitation, that snow, working its way southbound down toward the surface level, and it may not obviously all of those flakes will make it down, but maybe intermingled with the raindrops, we may see some wet snowflakes falling. I don't think we're going to see all snow, for example, here in the immediate New York metropolitan area, but it's possible we could see a mix. And during the day on Saturday, I think the day is going to be so unstable. We're going to have the gusty winds, probably in excess of 30 miles an hour. We'll probably see a lot of cloud cover, some breaks of sun. If the sun comes out, it'll only make it more unstable and lead to a few scattered showers of rain, or
Right.
maybe even some flakes of wet snow.
The Storm Prediction Center tonight, we have one working severe thunderstorm watch in northern South Carolina and much of North Carolina. And of course, we showed you on the radar earlier that line of storms that seems to be moving through. The outlook is inside that, where we have the watch box up, is where SPC has a slight risk of severe weather, eastern Tennessee, northern Georgia, and on eastward through much of North Carolina. Marginal risk kind of hugs it on either side. Also, a small area of marginal risk in southeast Texas and southwestern Louisiana. Not much happening tomorrow in the land of severe weather. It looks pretty quiet. And on the next day, which is Thursday into Friday, as you pointed out, with the low beginning to organize in the middle part of the country, we're going to see a slight risk of severe weather breaking out in parts of North Texas and back over into much of Oklahoma, a marginal to slight risk there. And days 4 through 8 not showing anything with regards to risk. Now, here's the upper air with what's happening with this lead system. And of course, you can see there's a upper low that forms back. Let me just roll this back a little bit here. So we get this shortwave trough. There's a trough that's actually pulling out, and there's a new trough that's swinging in. You see it here. The jet swings down and around. It's not really all that strong. It's got that, what we refer to as that positive tilt, that northeast southwest tilt, which usually with those types of troughs, the weather systems aren't very strong, and that is the case here, of course. So here's your trough, and one of the reasons why it's getting kicked along is if you look up to the northwest in the western lakes and dropping into the northern plains. This is strong northern energy that is dropping southeastward. And then you've got this trough that's moving into the Pacific Northwest that's going to be coming east. And these two are going to wind up phasing to an extent. That is going to be your weekend system. And if you take a look on the GFS, I'm going to bring the upper air. I'm only going to show well, I might as well bring up the whole country. Hang on one second. Let me change the geography.
I actually prefer the eastern U.S. Because it really brings things a little closer
All
for
right,
us.
so I'll leave the eastern U.S. up. Okay, so here's our first trough for tomorrow. Just kind of moves along, and now you see that northern trough dropping down fairly quickly right there. And here's that system coming into the Pacific Northwest now that's getting kicked along to the east. And if you watch what happens here, that northern energy just comes down and basically phases in with that southern system to an extent. Now you've got this big upper low that is going to be really dictating everything as it swings around to the coast. That's a really cold upper low, very, very strong upper air storm system that moves through the Northeast on Saturday and into Saturday night. And this is what Joe's been talking about. When you see those darker blues, that's very, very cold air aloft. And that is going to create a very unstable atmosphere, particularly here in the month of May when the sun can just heat things up big time in a hurry in during the day. So it's going to be trying to heat up this super cold air, and you're going to create instability, showers of rain and snow, and inland it's probably going to be more snow than anything else. And then that pulls out, leaving cold air behind. Joe, this jet goes all the way down. I mean, this cool air is going to be felt all the way down into Florida. I mean, this is a pretty impressive upper trough for May the 10th.
And here's something that I just looking at this upper air, and I'm saying to myself, why did you think about this? Do you think there might be any convection involved? Do you
You
think
know,
we might?
it was crossing my mind as I was speaking about the idea that there could be maybe some low top thunderstorms with some grapple, maybe even some wet snow.
Right.
Uh,
That's. I mean, this is amazingly deep I mean, how many deviations is this for early May? This is crazy.
Oh, it is. No, it is. And here's what it looks like on the surface. So we'll play out tomorrow's low. As again, you look at it, it's fairly disjointed. You do get a bit of a coastal low development with some rain, but it's not this sort of wipeout rain. The GFS even picking up maybe on a little bit of snow in some higher tops, higher elevation spots in northwest PA. The low later tomorrow into tomorrow night is east of New Jersey, south of Long Island, passes southeast of Cape Cod. We should improve on Thursday. A little bit of instability, shower activity indicated up in parts of upstate New York and back through the lakes because that first upper trough has to play through. And now here comes the next system. Here we go for Friday. Your low, there it is in eastern Arkansas. You've got a very cold high coming down with that northern stream energy. If I want to just put the fronts on this, you'll there's a cold front up here. Here's your low that's coming out in the southern stream. All of this back through here is cold air that is coming down ahead of a big high, and then your low starts to move east. Joe, look at this. It's got cold air. This system that moves into eastern Canada Friday actually brings in cold air because the GFS is actually showing some snow there on the northern fringe of the precip shield in Ohio and in southwestern Pennsylvania.
Right.
Rain gets in here later Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, Friday evening into Saturday morning. The GFS picking up on that northwest edge, being a little bit of wet snow mixed in, and this is where I think you probably stand a better chance of seeing in terms of the instability that shows up and the lake effect stuff that shows up in the afternoon. This is at 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon. All of this that I'm drawing, this is all mixed. Is either wet snow or snow and rain mixed, or maybe as you said, Joe, there'll probably be some maybe some low top convection out of this.
I think about that. I was just thinking, my mind wandered back to what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, and we had that very strong upper level system move on by, and then, we all remembered low top convection. I'm saying to myself, why didn't we think about this for this coming Saturday? It's certainly not completely out of the question.
Well, here I just brought the upper air for 1 o'clock in the afternoon Saturday. Can you get a colder upper low than you have here
No,
for
you
this?
can't.
You can't. The whole upper trough just swings here right over the northeast. You'd be surprised. You know what? May 9th, I don't care what the Weather Service record for New York City is. May 9th is is the snow. That May 26th date, that's hail, or whatever it is, May 25th or
May
26th.
29th.
May
Yeah.
29th, that's hail. Okay? This is either going to be there's going to either be some wet snowflakes or some grapple out of this before it goes by. And also, I don't want to overstate this, by the way. I was looking at what WPC's snow forecast probabilities. I mean, they're just showing like a couple of small pockets of less than 10% chance of 2 inches in the mountains of West Virginia, and then on up, way up in Maine somewhere. So I don't know. That's I don't sit at home expecting that you're going to wake up Saturday morning to accumulating snow, because that's down the coast, at least that's not going to happen. Maybe some of the higher elevations in the Catskills, the Poconos, and then on up into the Berkshires, especially Saturday afternoon. I bet you those areas definitely see some snow showers.
Oh no, yeah, I would not bet against it. It's amazing. And you mentioned about snow late in the season. I have a book that was written by the late great um, David Ludlum, a fantastic weather historian, and the book is Early American Winters. I mean, we're talking about winters that go back into the 1700s and early 1800s, and I'm going to check to see if he has in the New York area anything earlier than 1869. If there was, then he has it and
All
has,
right,
and we'll see.
it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So here's real quick for the upper air going forward. After this weekend's deep trough pulls out, another trough swings into the east. So much of next week is going to be on the chilly side. The models seem to be wanting to moderate things after, again, around the 14th or 15th. The trough in the east partially pulls out. You get into more of a west-east flow. The cold air the colder air flow tends to be a little bit more up in Canada, although there'll probably be some fronts that'll drop southward. This is not a warm pattern that's setting up, but it's not as crazy as what we're seeing for this weekend and into early next week. So this may be the worst of it. And as we get into mid-month, things may start to moderate just a little bit. The other thing I want to make a note of Saturday, I think, is going to be rather windy. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see wind advisories go up.
at least 30-mile-per-hour gusts, and I'm talking about now Tuesday for a Saturday event. And I'm sure that as we get closer, we're going to start seeing projections of that going up. And so, yeah, you may very well be right. We may have a wind advisory or a wind warning or even a high wind warning. I don't. Again, I don't really know what the criteria is for one versus the other, but certainly put in the back of your mind, wind is going to play a pretty big picture for
Yeah,
at least the
I
Saturday.
think the advisory is 40 gusts over 40, and for a high wind warning, it's gusts over 50. I don't know if you can see who hit super chat tonight because I can't see it right now. So whoever it was that hit super chat tonight, thank you so very much. Joe and I appreciate it greatly.
It was William Hubert.
Oh, Bill, thank you, William. Will actually met up with Bill today because he lives very close to me, and we went on part. I shared part of my walk with him today.
That's why he says on his super chats, down payment for a new pair of walking shoes.
Yes, thank you. I may need them real soon. All right, so let's get Briller Jeopardy done because you got the Met game coming up, and you can't miss that. So on Mount Washington, what was the greatest? Hold on, I got to read it from the beginning. What was the highest and lowest temperature ever recorded on the summit of Mount Washington? And what was the greatest seasonal snowfall?
You couldn't ask me an easy question like what was the all-time highest wind, right?
I could have asked you what is the average airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow, whether it be African or European, but we'll save that for another day.
Well,
Um,
let's work this out. Mentally here. Let's assume that the highest temperature at ground level could be around 100 degrees,
all
and
right.
Washington is 6,000 feet approximately up, and we go by a dry adiabatic rate of 3.5 degrees per 1,000 feet. So that would be 7 and 14 and 7, 14, 21. So I'll say the highest temperature ever recorded on the summit of Mount Washington will be within a degree or two of 80,
72
72.
in August of 1975. The lowest temperature.
And I remember that. You want to know? I even know the date of that. August 2nd, my birthday, 1975. It was a Saturday. They called it Hot Saturday. It was blisteringly hot all over New England, all over the northeastern United States. So, yeah, that's yeah, okay. I should have known that about Mount Washington reaching only, he says, to 72. Now you want the coldest temperature.
Yeah. Also, before you give me the coldest temperature, Timothy Veltman I want to just acknowledge Grumpy Fly Ale. Grumpy Fly
Gumpy.
Ale hit Joe.
Gumpy.
Glump,
What?
Gumpy.
Oh,
Gumpy,
Gumpy.
Gumpy Fly.
Gumpy Fly Ale. He'll super chat for a couple of euros.
Okay.
Is that something? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Gumpy, where are you from? I'd be very, very curious. And when we get storms out in the Atlantic that impact Europe, of course, we do pay attention. So uh, tell all your friends to. We have an audience that watches from Ireland and England. So this is so cool. I love it. All right. So the second
The
part of
cold,
it,
the coldest temperature ever.
the warmest was 72. Okay. So
Right.
the coldest.
All right. I could remember places in the Adirondacks like Old Forge and Boomtown or whatever, and they've dropped down to something like crazy temperatures like 40 and 50 below zero. So I'll say like minus 50 for
That's close. I'll give you an error of 5 degrees, so they'll give you that. I'll count that as a hit. 47 in January of 1934, greatest snowfall for the season.
greatest snowfall. All right. Uh, Well, Boston had 100 inches just a few years ago, and we're talking about 6,300 feet above sea level. How about I'll take a wild stab at this. I'll say 290 inches.
566 inches in
560.
the winter of 68, 69.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
That's pretty good. I mean, like when you consider like the what they get in the Cascades. Uh, I think they get more than that in the Cascades, but yeah, yeah, that's pretty damn good.
That's crazy. All
Yeah.
right, it's 7:30. So you got to go. Let me just say really quick, thank you for those of you who are watching from the meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app, and you can watch the Joe and Joe weather app, Joe and Joe weather show either live or recorded on the free app, which you can download on Google Play or on the App Store. Also, want to say thanks to those of you who joined from my Facebook page. There it is. I just saw Gumpy Fly Ales €2. Okay, €2. I love the YouTube show. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, sir. And as I said before, tell your friends to watch. We were here almost every night and on Sunday mornings from 11 a.m. At 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So, my Facebook folks, thanks for being on here. And those of you who are watching from Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's all one big party tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Have a great night. Joe, enjoy your Met game.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Bye.